It's the bird emergency. I'm Grant Williams, and as you can see, I'm on a different computer, and that's why I've got my daggy green screen. If you're listening, I'm sitting in front of a green screen with no groovy logo behind me. Today, I think we're coming up. I think you are now, Tegan, uh, way out in front as the most numerous guest on the show, and well, pushing it with Chris McCall. The Red Goshawk was pretty popular, but your episodes have been right up there. Tegan Douglas from BirdLife Australia, but the West Australian edition. And we know that Western Australia is so different to the rest of Australia. Tegan, thank you. Thank you for joining me again. We're going to talk about the Great Aussie Bird Count. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks, Grant. Thanks for that amazing introduction. I don't even know how I could even try to compete against against red goshawks, but I'll do my best.
Well, it's something that I've learned, Tegan, that seabirds have a strong following, but raptors seem to be the thing. I I thought parrots might be the favourites, but it looks like that hardcore raptor people are very, very, very hardcore. But then again, the red goshawk, what a bird!
It is a stunning bird. I've seen them just once, and it was just amazing views drifting overhead at Kakadu. And yeah, I can't deny they pretty specky.
So there's a good opportunity to say, if you haven't listened to the episode on the red goshawk, look up Red Goshawk, Chris McCall, the bird emergency on any of your podcast catchers or on the Bird Emergency channel on YouTube, and you can have a look. Facebook even. Hello, Chris McCall. How's things going up in Queensland? I hope everything's great up there. You're out of lockdown. I'm not. Tegan, the
Yes.
great Aussie backyard bird count. I've said it correctly, have I?
Close, the Aussie bird count.
The Aussie bird count. Where did
Mhm.
I get great backyard from?
It used to be called the Aussie backyard bird count. You called it great because it is.
Well, it is. It is great. And Tegan, how many birds are great?
All of them. Was that a
Yes, you
trick
got the
question?
correct answer. Well, it
Yes.
is a trick question, but of course, you're a doctor. You got it right. You're the one. Um, we're going to talk about last year's bird count
Mhm.
and have a bit of a prelude about when this year's is.
Yep.
What I put a question out on Twitter the other day, Tegan, and
Mhm.
it was specifically about offsets, and it was my usual snark, and it was, can anybody please give me one example of where offsets have been positive and great? Now, I only say that as introduction because have we got any situations where our rare and threatened birds in the last few years are
Mhm.
doing better from our bird count data than they were? Like, is anybody, any of our populations of our um, birds at risk in Australia
Mhm. Yep.
actually on the increase?
I feel so. You probably have to search a bit, like quite a bit down the list to find out those sorts of things. So to provide people, I suppose, with a bit of background to the Aussie bird
Yeah,
count
actually, let's talk
is,
about what the
yeah,
bird count is before I
sure,
before I
for you,
before we go running down rabbit holes. Tegan,
absolutely.
BirdLife Australia runs a bird count. Tell us about that. How is it done? What's it for?
So, at the end of October is National Bird Week. This year it runs from the 18th to the 24th of October. Every year during National Bird Week, BirdLife run what is called the Aussie Bird Count, and it's an opportunity for people across the country, no matter where they are, to record, to take the opportunity to do a quick citizen science survey and record the birds that they see, theoretically in their backyard, but in reality wherever they are. So last year's bird count had almost 110,000 people contribute sightings. They had over 1,500 schools contribute and managed to count in a week over 4.6 million birds.
That's pretty. That's pretty cool. I'm just looking. Yeah, I was just looking at my phone, Tegan, to make sure that I still had the app on
Mhm.
because a lot of it was really easy last year to do your count because we had a phone app, which was great.
Yeah, I'm sure that I've mentioned this before, but phone apps are amazing tools for citizen science. And so the bird count is the same. It has a web portal, so it's aussiebirdcount.com.au, and it also has an app that a free app that you can download. The really neat thing about the app is that not only can you use it for submitting surveys during National Bird Week, so in that week in October, but year round it works as a field guide as well.
Hmm. It's um, I think I think we talked about this last year when I don't know if if we were looking at the app last time we talked about the bird count, but it's a really nifty app, and uh, there's so many good ones now that you can sort of use them in combination, and you'll always be covered either with calls or with really good visuals or up to date distribution maps, so that you can take a fair stab at any of the birds that you see and be reasonably confident that you'll make a pretty solid identification.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's right. And because that's one of the things we don't want people to feel like they can't contribute to the Aussie bird count because they don't know their birds. So we encourage people to just, if they're not that confident, to start in their backyard to record the birds that they're seeing every day that they're going to be most familiar with. And yeah, that tool on the app that helps ID the birds that you're looking at is a really useful way to maybe pick out those trickier birds beyond laughing kookaburras and magpies and willy wagtails.
Laughing kookaburras, your friends in Western Australia.
So some say, but not me.
For international listeners, the kookaburra, which you may well be familiar with, certainly if you've been watching 1930s and 1940s movies that are set in Africa, you'll quite often hear the laugh track of the laughing kookaburra. Ooh, ooh, ah, 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 ah. There we go. Look, but it's a pest species in Western Australia. We haven't prepared for this, Tegan. Are they on the increase in WA?
They're definitely. Oh, I was going to say spreading their wings, but I'm launching into the bird puns too soon, aren't I? There are
That's my
areas.
territory. That's my territory.
we
Bad
can
jokes
all
all over here, please.
we can all play in that sandpit, Grant.
Yeah.
Come on.
All right. All right.
So yeah, the kookaburra, it is introduced to southwest of WA. The laughing kookaburra that is in the north, you do get the blue wing kookaburra that is there, that is a native
That
species.
and that's the maniac bird. If you've ever listened to its laugh, that is the maniac bird.
Yes, yes, indeed. But yeah, the laughing kookaburra, it was actually deliberately introduced into a couple of locations around the southwest. It's pretty. I wouldn't necessarily. Its numbers probably are increasing slightly. They're a territorial species. They're not the sort of thing that you get in big flocks like starlings or whatever. But you do get sort of pairs of them tend to encroach and take over habitat. There's been quite interestingly a sighting of one over. I think first turned up maybe just over a year ago in Esperance. So just one bird that, whether it flew all the way there from, I think, the closest other locations, I think you might get them around Albany. I'd have to have a look, but definitely in southwest WA. But it's a long way for a lone kookaburra to show up. Whether that's a sign that more are on their way and they're slowly going to overtake sort of greater southwest area, who knows?
I hope not. I
Me
like
too.
geckos. I like geckos a lot. So,
I like geckos. I like frogs. I
yeah.
like our legless lizards. I like baby birds.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, kookaburras are, well, we don't usually think of them as a murder bird, but the kookaburra is a murder bird.
They definitely are. And I think it's just, okay, I can understand that when Europeans first came to Australia, when the Swan River colony was first established, that the idea of there just being snakes trundling around the place was a really scary concept. But they weren't just, yeah, I mean, nobody told the kookaburras that was the only thing on their menu. So, of course,
No.
they branched out into all sorts of things. But then there was also just it doesn't sound Australian enough. We're used to this East Coast Australia where you get kookaburras in the dawn chorus. So let's bring some over to WA as well, because that's what our dawn chorus is missing.
Now, I'm displaying my ignorance here, Tegan, but you've got miners over there, haven't you? Indian miners. So
No.
Oh,
we have yellow-throated miners. No blackbirds.
Oh, so of course.
What pests do we have? Yeah.
Well, actually, they've kind of done you a solid, didn't they? They didn't bring the Indian miner over or the blackbird and go, hey, you can be just like Melbourne and Sydney. They said, have a kookaburra.
That's true. I mean, not without its own problems. So in southwest of WA, we're lucky enough to not have Indian miners. We don't have blackbirds. We don't have sparrows. We don't have starlings. In fact, our agriculture department has a very active project in keeping starlings from crossing the Nullarbor. So
now, urban myth or not, there are people on the eastern edge of WA who shoot starlings that might fly over. Is that an urban myth?
There is an active project to catch them. So there are a series of cages and things set up by the Ag Department to catch them. They would probably attempt to shoot some if there was a report. There's not a line of people with guns at the border.
Oh.
Well, not shooting starlings anyway.
So, so you ain't Texas?
We're not. We might be the Wild West, but we're not that wild. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I was going to say we're quite lucky in the southwest. Most of our introduced species are actually Australian natives. I mean, we do have spotted dove and laughing dove that are introduced, and rock doves, but otherwise it's kookaburras, rainbow lorikeets, and corellas, and also galahs have been introduced as well.
The corellas are introduced, are they? Definitely.
So longbills.
Yeah.
So the little corellas, it's probably a bit squiffy. We do get little corellas further up the west coast. Whether they've self-introduced, they've probably definitely been supplemented by birds being released from aviaries. And ditto with galahs. Galahs were really uncommon in the southwest prior to the clearing of the wheat belt. So there's definitely some dancing cockies and things that have been released from cages over time in Perth. That's exactly right.
Visual joke, dear listener. I was just doing the dancing cockatoo. Everyone's seen them in a cage, haven't they? So, Tegan, let's get a little bit serious. You mentioned the total numbers. You mentioned the total numbers of participants and the number of birds seen. Have you got a breakdown of the number of species that were seen? Did every species get a Guernsey?
They did not. So keep in mind that last year that parts of the country were still in lockdown, and I think, I might have my timing slightly out, but I think the restrictions were maybe just starting to lift around that time in Melbourne. Either a couple of weeks either side, but people weren't I
think we were in lockdown for the count. I'm just trying to think. I'm pretty sure we were in lockdown, or certainly in my, I think you're right. I think we came out of it just after lockdown.
Yeah.
But regardless, movement and whatnot, people
weren't despite
traveling to their normal, like holiday homes, other holiday locations. So a lot of people weren't dispersed around the country like they may have been before. So,
no, but despite that, we managed to record 610 species.
Okay, now, again, I didn't give you any questions, so we just said we were going to have a wide-ranging discussion. How did that species number compare to perhaps the previous count or two?
So I'm actually just going to cheat and have a little bit of a look and see how it compared to previous years. So I'm a scientist and I like to refer to figures sometimes,
Yes,
Grant.
yes.
So the number of species was down a little bit from the 2019 count. So it was 626 species recorded in 2019. So for those thinking about it, there's roughly, I mean, the new Australian Bird Guide has a list of 900 species that are on the list of having turned up in Australia. Keep in mind that there's, a good
Seabirds
150
and
of those that are,
so,
yeah, that's right, things that are unlikely to show up. So anything around the 600 mark is pretty significant. If you're a bird watcher that's seen 600 Australian species, you're feeling pretty chuffed with yourself.
You're a
Yeah,
legend if you've
that's
broken
right.
600. So.
Absolutely. So for the population of Australia to be able to record that many species in a week is pretty impressive. So yeah, we might not have seen as many birds last year as we had the previous bird species the previous year, but in fact, we actually had a much bigger turnout in terms of participation. And I think a lot of that did have to do with lockdown. People were noticing birds in their backyards a lot more.
No.
Oh, you don't want a lockdown, like a cheery
No.
story?
That's not why it was a good turnout. It's because you and I spoke about it last year,
Oh,
and
of course.
everybody listened and got involved.
Oh, yes, silly me. Sorry. You're right. It was us.
It's all you, Tegan. It's all you.
I was going to say us. There you go. But no, like we definitely noticed a lot more, and so in previous years the majority of participation that we get had been from Queensland and New South Wales, and last year, by comparison, we had like a substantial increase in people participating from Victoria. So, which was parts of which were under lockdown. So, yeah, I think there's definitely an element of people taking the time to appreciate nature where they can.
The only upside that I can see so far for COVID-19 in Australia is the resurgence in birding in your backyard.
There's been a big resurgence actually, and it's not just in birds as well. It's all sorts of nature-based citizen science.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people talking about frogs.
People appreciating their urban bushlands.
I've never had so many conversations about frogs in my local milk bar as I have in the last 12 months. And hey, Jodie Rowley, you are a legend. Just putting that out there. All that work it's paying off. I think again, off the cuff, Tegan, do you think this sort of awareness, the penetration of not so much conservation, but actually the citizen science being involved in information gathering and actually just being a participant in the environment around you, I think that's really increased significantly in the last few years. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, I definitely do. There's something really powerful if you're submitting a survey during National Bird Week, to be able to submit it and see the number of birds seen uptick as you submit your survey, and the number of surveys and number of participants tick up. There's something really powerful about being able to contribute to that. And when you see the results, to go, oh yeah, I had a say in that. I had some input into that. And we do see quite a lot of people that participate in the Aussie bird count, and who previously haven't contributed to programs like that. This is the thing that they do, and they get involved every year, which I think is really lovely as well.
Again, totally question without notice. Tegan, are you, from a BirdLife point of view, are you seeing some of that increased participation flowing on into membership or people attending events in the local branches of BirdLife?
Yeah, we are seeing an increase on all of those fronts. And I mean, to be fair, it's been a really weird sort of 18 months for that sort of stuff to be happening. But
one pandemic does not a trend make.
No, definitely not. But we certainly are. We're seeing, so the great thing about the Aussie bird count is it does, because it is such a such a friendly way for people to get involved in birds and in citizen science that it tends to attract a lot of people who might consider themselves more general nature lovers rather than sort of diehard twitchers who are going to be out looking for birds every week of the year.
Now, for the international audience, because I know there are some of you, thanks so much. New Zealand, I think, have just wrapped up their count, and I'm chasing up the Indian bird count and Canada to talk about what's different with what they do, how they do it, and of course, the important things, the results. And look, the participation is as important as what the data has borne out, because hey, I don't know if you know, Tegan, we're in a climate emergency.
I had been made aware of that news, unfortunately. Yes, yeah.
So the more people that are picking up notepads, pencils, binoculars, cameras, sound recording gear, whatever, if your little eyepieces and going out and identifying fungi or your local bees or whatever, good on you, because take someone with you, get them involved too.
Definitely. And it's not just about like what you're seeing while you're out there. It's also that connecting with the environment. It has flow on effects for our mental health. Like we're much happier when we're out surrounded by nature and green space. So yeah, it doesn't matter that effect happens regardless of whether you know what you're looking at or not. Like I'm quite happy to lead bird walks, and anybody who's been on my bird walks will know that, yeah, the bird aspect might be fine. My plant ID is rubbish, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying myself and giving it a go anyway. So, and that's the same. Like no matter what your field of expertise is, you'll definitely get enjoyment out of being out in nature.
But you can tell a Dilwinia from a Devesia, can't you, Tegan?
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
You found my Achilles heel, Grant. I'm sorry.
Okay, all those egg and bacon flowers, Tegan.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, Devesia I'm familiar with.
Yeah. Good. And the Canedias. All right. Anyway, look.
Yes.
We've had enough plant talk. Even
my Canedia postans is flowering in my garden at the moment, so there you go.
Oh, nice.
So there.
Very good. International listeners, just look up Canedias. Amazing plants.
Yes.
Very, 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 very important in the ecology in Western Australia, particularly. Most of them are West Australian species.
Yep.
Tegan.
Yes.
Highlights. Let's talk about some of the really interesting things that the 1 week of counting uncovered.
Yep. So what we tend to pick up from the Aussie bird count is that it tends to give us a really big reflection of what's going. Like we're able to pick up those really broad scale patterns about what's happening at the time. It is just a 1 week snapshot, but in previous years we've had years where there've been really severe drought in the southeast, and we've noticed lots of what would generally be considered arid zone birds, things like crimson chat and scarlet honeyeater, for example, turning up in people's backyards and being sort of higher up the rankings in the lists for the Aussie bird count. And so this year there was sort of with the horrendous bushfire season last year's count, but with the horrendous bushfire season that had happened the year before, there was this worry that, or not this feeling that we might be seeing some of those bushfire refugee birds still showing up in those areas, in sort of like glossy black cockatoos turning up in. Yeah, that's right. Or would our numbers be down horrendously because of the amount of habitat that had been lost in those bushfires sort of the 10 months beforehand? And because we had this massive effort, we're actually, we were recording those birds were still in those suburban spaces. And it'd be really interesting to see whether I know we're in the southwest, we've definitely had really big rains. and yeah, in the southeast you've been copying it a little bit too. So it'll be good. It'll be interesting to see what those birds are doing after sort of hopefully a bit of a return to normalcy, whatever that means these days.
Yeah, it's almost too much to hope for, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
I think I think we're all in that sort of frame of mind. Uh, Tegan, I always wonder with things like a survey where it's it's relying on a large number of participants to get meaningful data. But
Mm-hmm.
for nocturnal birds, how did those numbers relate last year compared to previous surveys? I just wonder
That's a
whether people
question
went
I
out at
don't
night.
actually. Um,
Yeah,
that's a question I don't actually have information for. So usually, what we find, so the for those who haven't participated, the Aussie Bird Count uses a 20-minute survey window. You can do that at any time of day or night. Ordinarily, when we use a 20-minute survey window, so a 20-minute 2 hectare area search or any other 20-minute count, usually owls are something that are really poorly represented.
mm,
But what we do tend to find with things like the Aussie bird count, people do tend to not just record birds in their backyard, but go to their favourite park
yeah,
and try and rack up as many birds as they can in 20 minutes, or, who wouldn't? But they do tend to go to places where there are known to be tawny frogmouths roosting, for example, or they know that their local boorbooks are nesting, or barn owls. And so I'd suspect that they're probably present in slightly higher proportions than they would be if we were conducting this as like a rigorous scientific sort of methodology where we sent everybody out at fixed times or whatever.
yeah. It just made me think about the sort of lockdown and the movement restrictions, even if the lockdowns were a bit relaxed. Is that
Mm-hmm.
people weren't really able to go out to their favourite national park and whatnot. So I just wondered if there was a difference with those. I don't know, let's call them specialty birds. If you're looking for a powerful owl, you really need to know where they've been seen, or else
Yeah,
you're just fluking it. It,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So
I think that'd be the same with the other nocturnal birds as
yeah,
well.
I mean, you can pretty much count on a barn owl if you're in a grassy area and you're out at night. You can,
Mhm.
I mean, you can pretty much see it, but I wouldn't think that you're going to see a master or a sooty. You need to know where
No,
they're hanging out.
most definitely. And if you're lucky enough to live in those areas where you get those birds calling every night, then yeah, that's pretty neat. I was so pleased the other night. Actually, I moved into the property that I'm in April last year, and I've slowly been plugging away at a bird list. I live in sort of quite sort of central Perth in just a unit. It's not particularly surrounded by bushland. I'd heard my first southern boobook call the other night from the neighbour's tree, and I was absolutely stoked with that. Fingers crossed it's hanging around in October.
Very good, very good. Well, at least you got at least one murder bird around. That's good. Do you get the barking? You don't get the barking owl over there, do you?
They're extremely uncommon in the southwest. There are a few scattered records of them, but there's nowhere. Yeah, mostly out in the forest, not in the suburbs. Yeah, unlike if you head to sort of more tropical WA, and they're pretty common there.
They're a murder bird. You've, have you heard one?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
I've had the delight of trying to sleep while a pair were just carrying on in the
carrying
like
on.
in the tree above my tent. So that was fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised they don't turn up in more movie soundtracks, more slasher movies and whatnot. They are amazing birds. I might go to Xena Canto and Xeno Cantor, should I say, get it correctly, and insert here. I think Tegan, they're they're great. Owls are amazing, and it's been so good. Have you been seeing the updates of the pair at University of Queensland.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
have.
that have one that is just fledged. Uh, how cool! How cool is that? That's what I love about Twitter and social media generally, is that you can see the story as it unfolds. We don't have to wait for 2 years for it to be on a documentary on TV, and yeah, that's been great. Thanks, Dr. Nick. So
Yeah, and I think
he's been
those
phenomenal.
birds are they're really great ways for people to get enthused about their suburban wildlife as well. When you know that you have predator species that are there in your suburbs, that you they're not there, like you don't see them unless you know exactly where to look or where to listen.
And
It's
especially
quite.
like the powerful owl, which is like a flying emperor penguin.
That's exactly right.
And
They're still on my to see list of powerful owls. I haven't yet had the good fortune. So
next time you head over to Melbourne, there's becoming a couple that are um, quite well known, that you can
oh, fantastic.
reliably get out to some of the
Hmm.
parks, some locations, and see them. It's really great. What about
Wonderful.
the what about the sort of icon um, rare endangered species that we're always worried about, Tegan? Did we get any good news in the surveys for? Well, let's talk about a couple of your West Australian favourites, of course, and they're similarly geographically challenged. The noisy scrub bird and the western ground parrot. Did they feature in the count?
I'm just check. So
This is
I'm
great.
just checking the list. You're putting me
I'm putting
totally on
her
the
on the
spot.
spot.
I'm looking at the tops of the lists, not the bottoms.
Well,
So I'm pretty sure that we actually missed. We didn't get any Western ground parrots in recording the survey, which is unsurprising. There's
yeah, not
a
surprised at
population.
all. But
Um, and I also think that we didn't get any of those skulkers, the noisy scrub bird, Western bristlebird, or I'm missing one, Western whitbird.
Western whippet.
Hmm.
I, I always forget that they're as rare as they are, because of course they're still pretty ubiquitous if you're in the wet forests in Victoria anyway,
Mhm.
that you will hear them. You may never see them, but you will hear them, or you'll
Yeah.
hear a lyrebird doing its impression of a eastern whitbird. Uh, how how perilous is the situation with the western whitbird, and where are they where are they known to be prominent?
So yeah, there's actually two subspecies of Western whitbird. One that's a malleeform, that's malleeform and is more widespread, and is probably considered to be, even though it has a not a particularly large distribution, it they think that it is pretty like reasonably stable.
Pretty common. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
always had in mind, having never
Mm,
seen one.
yeah.
Um,
And then the other subspecies that is much more restricted to the coastal heath. I mean, that's the area.
that's the heathland
Yep,
species, so, or
that's
subspecies,
the one that gets. Oh,
or
I'm not sure where the taxonomists
or
have it
I was
placed
going to
at the
say,
moment. So
we'll have to
I'd
talk to
start a
Maggie.
Twitter war if I.
We're going to have
Yeah.
to talk to Maggie and ask about a Klein. So
Yes. Yeah. Go on. But I mean, the birds that are found in that neck of the woods, that southern coastal heath, that's the area that does tend to get unfortunately smashed by bushfires, and so that's why those birds are not doing particularly well. So 2 years ago, when we had the really big fires through Stirling Range National Park in southwest WA, so that happened the same year that we had all the disastrous bushfires on the east coast. Yeah, they our population of Western whitbirds was probably significantly impacted there, because that was formerly quite a good spot for them. And I think 2/3, 3/4 of the park burned over those couple of days. So yeah.
so that's coming on to 2 years ago. How
Mhm.
how is that area bouncing back?
I haven't actually personally been down there. It definitely is, but it's really patchy. I mean, anybody who's seen it's probably quite, I imagine, quite similar to places on the East Coast. You get those patches where it still looks like a moonscape, just the fire was so intense that things haven't sprouted back. And yet somehow in the midst of it, these little patches where things have resprouted quite, like where the existing trees have resprouted and stuff's germinated from the seed bank, and it's starting to bounce back and provide a bit of habitat. But yeah, it'll be a few years, like more than a few years yet, until it is starting to look useful for a lot of our birds that we used to get there.
Yeah, the birds that live in those kind of habitats aren't, well, apart from perhaps some of the honey eaters, but they're not big movers, are they? Like they're not capable of moving really significant distances. They're limited to a couple of miles or a couple of maybe a dozen kilometres. I'll try and wind back my old man talk.
Nice save. Some of them definitely are territorial. So we know things like the noisy scrubbird, for example, is really is quite territorial and does have reasonably small territories. And I think that's also the same with western bristlebird. We know things like western ground parrot are reasonably more mobile, but they are still restricted. Like there's such a small patch of viable habitat that even though they are moving around, there's still just not that many of them.
Parrots
Mm-hmm.
in the bird count.
Yes.
Let's go to parrots.
Oh, well, parrots topped the bird count.
Now, well, I'm sure cockatoos and corellas top the bird count. Would that be right?
So just the same as in 2019, it was the rainbow lorikeet that topped it. So this is nationwide. And the thing to, of course, remember is the things that tend to come out at the top, like towards the tops of these lists, are things that have a really big distribution. So they're picked up in lots and lots of surveys.
And like gardens, like to be around the altered habitats that we've
absolutely.
So,
if you look at the top 10 list for this year, or sorry, for last year, it is most definitely a snapshot of the common birds that you would expect to get, particularly in towns and cities up the eastern seaboard. So,
what a segue, Tegan. What a segue. Top 10. Let's do the top 10.
Do you want to do it in reverse? I've given away the number one, though. That's a bit rubbish, isn't it?
Coming in at number 10.
Number 10 for the second year in a row has made the top 10 is the delightful, well-loved, sometimes hated, bin chicken, the Australian white ibis.
The bin chicken, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, we've got two watery frequenting birds in the top 10, but yeah, that's it's probably the ibis. Number 9 this year, only found on the East Coast, common myna. So a non-native in the list.
And, which people who are as old as me would call the Indian myna.
That's exactly right.
So,
yep.
Number 8.
Number 8, the well-known thiever of chips, the silver gull.
The seagull. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
I love
They're beautiful. They're beautiful looking birds. Right. They just have a very poor habit of hanging out at rubbish tips and thieving food at restaurants.
Well, they're smart. They're smart. Why go looking for anchovies when you can get a chip?
Absolutely.
You can get a chip from some dude who just got off the train. I mean, that's, they're right up there.
Mm-hmm,
Number 6.
Oh, do you mean?
Hang on. Number 7.
Thank you.
Clickety clevin.
Was the welcome swallow. So I actually thought this was a really nice find. Like, it's not a bird that everybody can recognise. They're small and usually zipping around in the sky, and we have a few birds that fit that category.
On that one, Tegan,
mm-hmm.
That's a widely distributed bird, but certainly in my locality, in in Western Melbourne,
Yeah.
it's far less common than it was. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if there was a sort of a skew whiff with the numbers in different parts of the country. Maybe they've moved um, north or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we are getting more and more coverage across the country as the counts progress as we move through the years. And yeah, so there's no reason why, like it could be down to a lot of reasons. It could just be that we're getting surveys in from different areas. Or it could be a legitimate change. I just had a look at the 2019 results. It's actually, the Welcome Swallow actually has bumped up 2 spots. It was in ninth position in 2019 and is now
Okay.
it was seventh last year. Who knows where it'll be this year?
Um, I mean, when I was young,
Mhm.
back before they invented the wheel, the e- every every building, everyone's
Mhm.
shed had a swallow nest. They were
Yep.
everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, much less frequently seen in my experience, and of course, who who else's experience counts, right? Yeah, I mean, it just yeah. I'm glad to see that it's gone up. I'd really like to see the dig down into the numbers and see whether that's sort of there's far more of them in inland New South Wales and inland Queensland and whatnot now, and how that compares to the coastal fringe, the southeast fringe,
Yeah.
which is where I'm most familiar with seeing them.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to be able to delve into the data a lot more this year as well. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Welcome Swallows. I think they would have at least suffered a bit of a decline when local councils were going through the phase of spraying chemicals around wetlands to keep midges under control. Instead of relying on the Welcome Swallow, nature's own midgie control.
That's right.
So yeah, since councils have started to switch to more environmentally friendly ways of managing those sorts of insect problems, I think Welcome Swallows have been one of the beneficiaries, that's for sure. And probably the other thing to mention about this list, sorry, you were just going to jump into another number, weren't you? Is that it's about the top 10, like the numbers that are seen as well. It's not the proportion of surveys that they show up in, but it's the numbers that are seen. So when you see flocks of Welcome Swallows, that's that definitely bumps them up the list.
Now there's a really interesting rabbit hole to go down, Tegan. We're talking
Mm,
about raw numbers of birds, but we're not
yeah,
talking about the proportion of either surveys or locations.
that's
Uh,
right.
will that manipulation of data happen, or is there a way for people to actually um, interrogate the data if they want to find those things out? Do you like
It's
that?
prob-
That was me.
I
That
do.
was me doing scientist talk. I've learnt
Oh,
scientist talk. We're going to interrogate the data.
delightful. Well, I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not able to do it on the spot as we're chatting live about it. But it's definitely something we'd like to give people the capacity to have a look at in the future. And it definitely is an aspect. I know. Well, sorry, I'm not sure about you, but I've been seeing lots of pictures of massive budgerigar flocks
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah. Well,
in like Northern Territory and in northern Western Australia at the moment. If they were hanging around in October, it wouldn't take too many of them to, flocks of 10,000 birds to sort of bump up the numbers, that's for sure.
and the budgerigar pictures that people were sharing on social media was
Mhm.
getting lots of traction worldwide. And actually, I listen to. Um, look, I'm a freak, right? I do.
If you say so.
Well, I do. I do a podcast about birds, mate. I'm out there, and I listen to BBC World Service overnight when I'm when I'm dreaming up who I can interview next, right? And they covered on a couple of programs
Mm,
um, they were calling it an eruption of budgerigars, but
yep.
I, I think it was probably not so much a special eruption. It just happened to be that there were people who saw these flocks. I think this is really regular occurrence for budgerigars, it's just not usually in front of someone with a camera.
Yeah, it's probably a mix of both. I mean, I know definitely that the Kimberley had a really good wet season this year, and they had they had a couple of cyclone events drop significant amounts of water through that, like across that country. So it provided perfect habitat for budgerigar numbers to build up. So it's a combination of there being good conditions and also people in the right place at the right time. But it definitely is a natural wonder, that's for sure.
Yep, budgerigar, the world's most popular cage bird, and you don't see blue ones out in the wild.
I have yet to see one, that's for sure.
No, I think they're always green. Look, again, Tegan, you're a West Australian. There's more budgerigars in West Australia than there is in the northwestern suburbs of Melbourne. Yellow ones, albino ones, are those kind of morphs seen regular?
Not that I see. So across bird species in general, my experience with seeing leucistic birds or birds that have certain like pigmentation things going on is that it's usually not the whole bird. It's usually just a patch.
Just a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen silver eyes that are instead of being that beautiful olivey green color on the head, just have a large patch of yellow.
Yeah.
It's usually the aviary breeding and the aviculture that leads to the entire bird being that color. In nature, it's usually it's quite often just a patch.
Creating freaks, you mean?
Creating natural variability.
Number 6.
Coming in at number 6 was the delightful, non-native but still lovely house sparrow.
Now that does surprise me. I reckon that data would be really interesting to have a look at about where those records have come from.
Absolutely. They're definitely one that people think has been on the decline in some urban areas of late.
But certainly, I can't remember if I had this discussion with you, Tegan, but when one of the reasons that I actually decided to do the podcast, I'd always wanted to talk about birds, right? But the whole bird emergency idea came to me because I started to notice that there were less and less sparrows. And then when I thought, gee, there's less rosellas. Oh, there's less honeyeaters, So for me, that was an indicator. Now, of course, I might be the most special, but one person's data does not a trend make. So
you're not the only person to notice that, though.
So, well, I'm glad there's other people equally as clever and switched on as me, Tegan. Isn't that amazing? That's really, really interesting. As much as I wish it was red-browed finches or double bar finches or something occupying number 6.
Yep.
It's kind of hopeful in a way if that decline has been arrested, but not if it's only that species. That's a different issue.
That's right. And it's quite interesting also because, like I mentioned earlier, that's a species that you don't find in Western Australia. I assume you don't get them at all in the Northern Territory, maybe. I'm not sure about their...
I wouldn't have thought so. I think...
No.
I don't even know how far up the north coast of Queensland they have gone. I mean, certainly when I lived in Brisbane, which was quite a long time ago, they were not common in Brisbane, not like they were in Sydney and Melbourne.
And I mean, when you look at the top 3 lists for each state and territory, so house sparrow topped the list in... Hang on. Oh, all right, sorry.
Don't wait until... Well, we can do... We'll do this... At the end, we'll do the state breakdown.
Okay, sure.
Talk about those.
Yeah, no trouble.
Let's put the sparrow aside for a minute, and we'll go. And bringing in the rear of the top 5, number 5
is the delightful galah.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, widespread. So there's the first year parrots
Yeah.
coming onto the list.
Okay. And, well, probably for the international listeners, a lot of people are amazed at just what a galah looks like. But they in a way, for Australians, we're so familiar with them in that in a lot of cases they're almost invisible to us. We just don't notice them, but they are amazing creatures. Um, that's good. I'm really happy that they're still at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4, I thought this one was an interesting one to make it into the top 4. Sulphur crested cockatoo.
Well, they have definitely had a resurgence. I mean, they
Mhm.
are well, they're everywhere in suburban Melbourne now.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
never used to be. I mean, again, I'm going back to the in the Roman days. Um,
They definitely
um,
are one of our really adaptable, and yeah, we definitely classify them
well, they're
as an urban
so
bird these
clever,
days. Mm.
so clever. And if we're going to continue to put street trees out that have a good food source for them, they're going to spread. And they're nesting in all kinds of opportunistic places in the cities. So good on them.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I suppose there is only this feral population of them in Perth, but a very very small um, one, and then they're not completely, like, they're not widespread across sort of that southwest. So most of South Australia, southern Northern Territory, and
Yeah,
southern Western Australia as well. So
yeah. I mean, the
that's my
Corellas.
southwest bias coming in.
Yeah,
You
no, the
see.
Cor- the Corellas replace them. I mean,
Mm,
generally in the drier parts of the country. I mean, they're becoming a very very adaptable urban bird.
mm.
Um, number 4.
That was number
Oh, we just did number 4.
4. Sorry.
Number. Right, see, rabbit holes confuse
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
Number 3.
Number
Top
3,
3.
that they're very,
The
again,
green
hitting the
ribbon.
news for the wrong reasons. Australian magpie.
Um, well, look, they don't have much to talk about other than, oh, someone got swooped by a magpie. Oh, what are our posties going to do? Um, come on. Stop throwing stones at magpies. Stop standing under their nests and glaring at them. And, well, when the ones who are already swooping you have become geriatrics, maybe the young ones won't swoop you. Just come on, people. Magpies. My local magpie doesn't swoop me because I don't upset him, but he swoops other people. I'm sure I told this story before. Um, I like going and sitting in the park, and at the moment he is terrorising
Mhm.
all of the local corellas, cockatoos,
Yep.
wattlebirds, anyone. He nests in a tree virtually straight outside my place. Um, Mrs. Magpie is currently busy incubating, and Mr.
Yep.
Magpie, he's driven off last year's kids. They've gone. They're nowhere to
Hmm.
be seen,
Yep.
and he is terrorising selected individuals. He doesn't terrorise everyone. He doesn't terrorise little kids, but he terrorises other men,
Hmm.
not me, but
Yep.
generally other men. And he doesn't like people with pushes, from what I can tell. Um,
Okay.
so, incredibly
Yeah.
smart bird. I don't think we give them anywhere near enough credit for their intelligence.
No, definitely
Don't give
not.
them a hard time. Don't go and stand under their nest. And
Well, I
don't
think
throw
the thing is
rocks.
as well, because they can recognize faces, they can judge you based upon, they
What you
they are
do.
profiling. Well, they've
Yeah.
profiled you, and you look like somebody else who has caused the mischief, and so better to be safe than sorry. And
Yep. I mean, put an ice
so,
cream container on your head and draw a couple of eyes on it. Isn't that what Did you used to have to do that? Oh well,
I
are they a problem in Perth, Tegan? Like swooping
they
magpies?
they do swoop. I don't think that they are as aggressive as they are in other parts of the country. I've never been swooped, despite my long days spent magpie pestering.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think they are smart and they do recognize faces. But I think there's also there's a lot more tools that we use to, I suppose, prepare ourselves for magpies. City council's a lot better at signposting areas when birds do start nesting. There's a web page or a Facebook group that sets up alerts for around nesting birds, so it becomes a lot easier to avoid problem areas, particularly if you're on a bike or whatever it is that seems to trigger them.
our postie doesn't get swooped by this magpie either.
He
The
must be
postie,
relieved.
yeah, no, the postie doesn't cop it with this
Mhm.
magpie. I haven't.
Yep.
I've never asked him about the other magpies, but it's really interesting. He doesn't go after little kids. He uh, mostly men and women with pushes, from what and
Yep.
haven't seen him go anyone on a bike either.
Oh, okay. You've got the anti magpie.
No, I've just got a really clever one, a really really clever one. Um, Look, going off topic again, because I've got a park straight out the front, and during
Yep.
lockdown it was very difficult to do any bird watching. So with
Mhm.
my supermarket delivery, I started ordering wild bird mix seed clear across, so I can sit in the lounge room and watch
Mhm.
the corellas, the long bills, little corellas, galahs, sulphur crests come in.
Yep.
Well, during swoopy season, I thought what I'll
Mhm.
do is uh, I'll put the seed out under the fence, under the railings, so that it was
Mhm.
harder for the magpie to drive off the cockies.
Yep.
Well, he woke up to that. He starts sitting in a different tree, and he
Mhm.
worked out if he goes to the far extremes of the park, he can come to the lowest point,
Yep.
clear under the fence, and land
Mhm.
on the TV antenna on my place. So took him a few days to work it out, but he's worked it out. And when he wants to drive off the seed eaters, he does. The
Yep.
fence is no obstacle. So
No, no, they're pretty smart.
they are super smart. What are we up to? No,
That was
we're,
number
in,
three.
we're up to the red ribbon, silver medalist,
Coming in at number two is the noisy miner.
of course. And
Of course, you knew it was in there somewhere, right?
well, in a way, I'm a little bit surprised. Again, I'd love to interrogate the data,
Mhm.
because you're looking at number of records of birds.
Yep.
Now, I'd really like to know how many places it was in the top three. I
Yep.
imagine that in high density urban areas, it's up high,
Mhm.
probably where the most participants for the survey are, and
Yep.
yeah, well, noisy miner, it's a honey eater,
Mhm.
um, um, sociable, aggressive, bully, dominant. So if you're only seeing 5 or 6 species of birds, and you're in an urban area, especially with parks and uh, edge plantings, that's
Mhm.
my sort of view. That I generally see them not in. You don't see them out in the middle of ovals or parks with big expanses. They're always
Mhm.
on the fringe.
Yep.
Golf courses, they love golf courses because of that
Mhm.
edge planting down each side of the fairways and whatnot. Um, they love a callistaman. They love a callistaman. Actually, scientist alert.
Yes,
I've always said callistaman, but are you saying callistemon?
I say callistamin, but
No, callistaman.
I'm in no
No,
way a
no,
botanist. So
no. You're a scientist. I'm taking. Um, that's a win. We're taking
okay.
that. Drum roll. Who's
Number number one of the most colourful birds in the country, the rainbow lorikeet.
Well, um, rainbow lorikeet, problematic fellow nowadays,
Indeed, we're definitely
and
definitely in the southwest.
and in the news lately because of a weird new disease that is afflicting birds in northern New South Wales, southern Queensland. So,
I haven't been keeping up to date with that. What's been happening there?
well, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too
Okay,
much.
are you spoiling another episode?
There's going to be another episode quite soon
All right,
about that. Yeah,
excellent.
it's lorikeet paralysis, which
Mhm.
yeah, haven't had the discussion yet, but was brought
Okay.
to my attention a bit, and yeah, chased it up and got some names.
Mhm.
So we'll be doing that soon. Statewide. Let's start with your patch.
Excellent. Shall I? I'm just going to run through the top three because
Yeah,
otherwise it's just
well,
going to
yeah.
get a
Well,
bit.
no, let's do the top
Oh,
five, and we'll just
oh,
anything.
I only have the
You've
top
only
three
got
in
the
front
top
of me.
three.
Yeah, sorry.
Someone didn't do their homework. Um,
Ah,
all right, what's the well with the states? Give us the
yep.
top three, and then let's
Mhm.
see if there was anything that was irregular or upsetting or really good out of the
Okay.
numbers. So,
Yeah. So the top three for WA in order were New Holland Honeyeater, Rainbow Lorikeet, and Galah.
okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely stoked that a native honeyeater topped the list in the state. Um,
And got the characteristic of being very adaptable garden bird. So again, probably reflecting
mhm.
again if we interrogated the geographic data that
Yep,
you know
it's definitely
probably
only found in the southwest, so that is a definite clue. Rainbow lorikeet introduced and only found around Perth, but found in big numbers, so that's probably why it's sitting up high up the ranking. And then Galah
and you
found
can't
across the
ignore
state.
it. You like
No,
if the rainbow lorikeets are around, you hear them, and because you hear
definitely.
them, you do see them. So
Yep.
uh, yeah,
I am always super impressed if I can manage a 20-minute survey in the Perth suburbs and not
without a
hear a
rainbow
rainbow lorikeet.
yeah,
Yeah,
good
it's
luck.
my challenge.
Yeah,
It's
good
really
luck.
difficult unless I'm head up into the Perth Hills, but on the Swan Coastal Plain, it's tough to find a 20-minute window that doesn't have rainbow lorikeets calling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, they're a joyous bird,
Mhm.
um, but they're displacing other species. I am guessing.
Most definitely. So, probably the main issue that we have in Perth with them is they're really aggressive at taking over hollows. In fact, galahs are in the same boat.
Yeah,
We have some delightful native parrots, so not just the big guns like carnabies and
red
red-tailed
caps,
blackcock, but
red
yeah,
caps.
red caps, western rosellas, elegant parrots, regent parrots. All of those are not well. Sorry, those smaller ones definitely struggle to compete with those bossy characters, and hence we don't get them on the Swan Coastal Plain very much.
Um, when again, probably testing your memory, but when did the galah start to become common? Do you know when it was introduced? Give or take 10 years.
So partially it's probably self introduced as we cleared the wheat belt. That provided
Okay.
fantastic conditions for them to move southwards. And they'll probably, I mean, who knows how long they were
Yeah.
when they were first cage birds and released. But yeah, definitely they weren't really strongly recorded sort of prior to I think the 1970s in a lot of the general wheat belt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Perth itself.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Again, it's only memory of a kid
Mm.
going back to again the time of the conquistadors. I'm pretty sure my Slater guide had them not occurring in Perth. I'm pretty sure the map
Yep.
said, wheat belt, that the Great Western sort of area was as far as
Hmm.
they got. I mean, they were always thought of as being an inland bird. I mean, when I was a kid, they weren't common in Melbourne. You didn't see flocks of them in Melbourne often. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, they've done really really well. Smart birds, adaptable. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And they're probably the thing that they do along with rainbow lorikeets is that they will not only will they use a tree hollow for breeding, but they'll keep other birds from using it at other times
Yeah,
of year, and
yeah.
so that really gives them a bit of an extra edge, unfortunately.
Dibs. I got dibs on that hollow. So,
It's not the way it should work.
okay, well we haven't talked about Tasmania at all, Tegan. Have you got
We
Tassie
haven't.
there?
I do. They unfortunately have, despite having some amazing endemics and just some fantastic sort of seasonal visitors, the top three for Tassie were all non-native species. So that was
Really?
one of the yes. So top of the list was house sparrow. So we are talking about that before as potentially being on the decline. Apparently, still doing really well across Tassie. But yes, common starling came in second, and then blackbird was the third.
Yeah. Um, gee, gee,
Mm,
gee. No
indeed.
yellow-throated honeyeaters. That's a bit of a bugger.
No yellow wattle birds. No, yeah, none of them. But I mean, that being
And
said, again, birds in flocks,
yep,
and
people
that's
notice
what.
them. I'm
Yep.
well. Let's see how we go with. Let's do Canberra next. I want to see if we get a
Mhm.
wattle bird in there.
Not this year. Oh, sorry, not
Not this.
last year.
No.
The top three for the ACT last year were Australian magpie, sulphur crested cockatoo, and crested pigeon.
Well, crested pigeons have exploded where I live,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
I'm kind of not surprised. Again, they're much more adaptable than I thought. Again, when Arthur Phillip arrived in Australia back when I was a boy, uh, crested pigeons were a real rarity in Melbourne. I mean, you had to go inland. Pretty much, you had to cross the divide, and you would start seeing crested pigeons. Uh,
I,
International listeners, Great Divide, Great Dividing Range. We have a mountains that sort of come from right up North Queensland, right down the east coast, and then swoop around a bit past Melbourne, and that's a very significant geographical uh, divide. It's sort of it's much drier on the inland side of that, and that used to be you cross over the Great Dividing Range and you'd start driving into central Victoria and you'd be looking for crested pigeons. So
I think they're quite similar to my mind. They're quite similar to galahs in their behaviour. They're that sort of arid zone bird that will erupt into and take advantage of more coastal areas when conditions are good, and also when they can adapt quite well to suburban life. So,
yeah, railways transporting grain have been very good to the crested pigeon.
oh
No doubt
yes,
about
well
that.
to the galah as well. That's for
Yes,
sure.
no doubt about that. Let's go and say hello to our friends in the tropical top end, Tegan.
Sure. So I feel like the NT has just snagged the one of the best top birds
Good.
in the magpie goose.
Oh,
So,
the
which I
magpie
think is
goose.
fab. Like, how fab would it be to have magpie goose as the most commonly seen bird in your bird count?
Again,
Um,
they're the bin chicken of the NT, though, aren't they? A little bit.
oh, come on, show them a bit of love.
Well, they're prone to population
That's
eruptions. They are
yes, yeah.
really good at taking advantage of good conditions,
Hmm.
but they've sort of adapted. They're a bit like the ibis. They have adapted to where suburban living likes to get rid of its rubbish, and they're not tearing open garbage bins and whatnot, but they're really good at scavenging. They're pretty adaptable
They
at
are.
what they eat. So
Yeah, and I mean to
uh,
be fair, they also make themselves at home in those fruit growing areas
that's right.
as well.
That's right.
Um,
They love
they love just the
agricultural
fruit, and
systems. Yep.
yep. So yeah,
Fabo.
magpie goose, red collared lorikeet, and little corella. So they were the top three for the NT last year.
Well, little Corella. Again, I'd love to see the geographic data, and see if they're a Darwin bird or whether they're a sort of rural and regional record. Do you know off the top of your head whether the
Not for
little
those
Corella.
records. I can have a quick. I do have a cheeky reference here. I can just have a quick look
Cheeky
at.
reference. Yes,
If
the
you don't,
Australian Bird Guide.
we might need some thinking music just while I find it.
And
Oh no! Here we go. Done.
that was good. I hadn't even got
And
to
that.
the guitar solo.
Oh, sorry. That was a 17-minute track with a 6-minute drum solo in the middle.
Emerson, Lake
Then
and Palmer. So
across the NT is the distribution for Little Corella. So there's only this just shows a tight, like quite a small pocket where you actually don't get them. Otherwise, you get them your different subspecies, but yeah, throughout the range.
that's well, they obviously filling that niche that the Galar and the Sulphur Crested are moving into in the southern capitals. So
Yep. Yeah,
interesting.
that's right.
Interesting.
Where would you like to go next?
Well, let's go to Lockdown Central. Let's go to Sydney.
All right. Well, you mean New South Wales as a whole
Yes,
for the
sorry.
bird count? Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, New South Wales, their top three looked pretty similar to the top couple nationally. So Rainbow Lorikeet topping it out, Noisy Miner, and then Sulphur Crested Cockatoo were their top three.
I did want to ask you something. I went down the Corella rabbit hole. Red-collared lorikeet, are they in Darwin?
Yep.
Do they behave the same way as the rainbow lorikeet? They're obviously very closely related, look very similar, but are they the bully boys and the coolest gang in town in Darwin like they are here?
That's an excellent question, and I'm not too
know,
sure of the answer.
It's amazing.
I'm going to chicken out. I'm not going to sort of commit myself. Well, I would suspect so, but I don't want to be on the receiving end of.
No. You don't want to be on any lorikeet hate mail. The end of it.
No, because they are bullies. Bloody hell! I'd never hear the end of it. I'd just get trash talk from here to forever.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go out there on a limb and say I suspect that they're occupying the same ecological niche, and that I haven't seen them in flocks. I don't know, but I'm guessing in an urban setting they probably are doing exactly the same thing. Well, if the rainbow lorikeet isn't up there displacing them, they must be pretty good at pushing back. That's what I think too.
Yes, yeah. I mean, an interesting thing with rainbow lorikeets being between the southwest and the southeast is that I understand, not being from Eastern Australia, I understand that rainbow lorikeets spend quite a bit of time in Banksia, feeding in Banksia and things on the east coast.
Yeah, look, they do, but again, I'm not a scientist. My lived experience with rainbow lorikeets and the flocks is that they follow the flowering eucalypts, so that whatever, whether the mountain ash are in flower or whatever in whichever habitat up and down the east coast, they're moving up and down. We do have resident populations which have adapted to the fact that we are planting street trees like around here, eucalyptus or Corymbia maculata and Citriodora and the ironbarks are street trees around here. So there's food for them all year, but the massive flocks which we see, I see them in summer when there are more things in flower. I think they're adaptable enough to be using obviously there's melaleucas and whatnot too, paperbarks, and so they're super adaptable. They will sit on your Banksia cones or whatnot, but that's wattlebird territory usually.
It's interesting in WA. They we do most definitely get them through both the native and the introduced eucalypt species, and on callistemons, but honestly say I've never seen one on Banksia. So they tend to, you don't get them in our where we have patches of Banksia woodland. You might, if it's small patches, you might get them flying over between some of the like eucalypt canopy species, but not in the Banksia woodland. So we haven't really had them extend north from Perth because it's all proteaceous heath and Banksia woodland, which is quite fortunate actually.
Well, I can risk the reputation that I don't have, Tegan, and I can say something like I could pose a hypothesis, perhaps because they're introduced over there, that they haven't learned that behaviour of the Banksias are a good food source in a garden. Maybe they just never learned that.
It's interesting though. I mean, they'd be here still seeing red wattlebirds and the other honey eaters feeding on them. Surely, I mean, their sense of smell's better than ours, so surely they can smell the nectar. It is just there, but yet they don't seem to use it.
There's a PhD project for somebody.
Yeah, hey? I've already got one.
No, there's one for you to supervise there, Tegan.
I'd be happy to. If anybody is interested in looking at rainbow lorikeet feeding habitats and impact on spread in the Greater Perth Metro, hit me up.
Hey, Rob, that's one for your lab, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly
be a good
is.
one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it definitely would be.
All right, job. Behavior.
All right.
Animal behaviour, everything. Brisbane.
Queensland, excellent. The top three, rainbow lorikeet also topped out the list there, followed by noisy myna and then Teresian crow.
That's a beauty. That's an absolute beauty. And the reason I say that is I reckon most people would just go, that's a crow. That's a crow. Well, no, it's a raven. Nah, it's a crow, mate. So really hard to identify on a fleeting look.
Yes.
And for those of us who are lazy birders, sometimes we just go,
Craven.
That'd be a little raven.
Okay, that's not in my go-to.
Yeah, I say that with absolute confidence. That's a little raven. Yeah.
I see your confidence face. I mean, I know that listeners to the podcast wouldn't have seen your confidence face you were making then, but
or if you and if you move sort of into the southeast, of Victoria, you go forest raven. Forest raven. Yes.
They are chonky birds. I like them.
But seriously, Tegan, and I know we haven't done a lot of that today. If you're 400 metres away from a big black bird,
yep,
and you're looking at it with your binoculars, how often are you going to put your tick down in pen?
Depends where I am.
But that's playing the probabilities. This is really my point.
Well, there are some places where I'd know that you'd only get one of those species. So in WA, you've got a choice of three. It's Australian raven, little crow, or Teresian crow. You can annoyingly you do sometimes get them hanging out together and somewhat copying each other. There are people who say, "Oh, yeah, you can just go straight on call," but
no,
that's a bit of a furphy.
The ravens are really difficult if they're crossing over with their ranges. I used to subscribe to that. Yeah, just listen. No worries, mate.
But I mean, that being said, you can for the three that you get in WA, you can separate them out on combination of tail shape and throat hackles if you're lucky enough to see those features.
Hackles is the first go-to, isn't it? But
yeah.
But sometimes they just go, hey.
It's a young bird, or the wind's blowing funny, or they're just going to stare straight at you, not showing you side on.
They're just sitting there going, hey, have you seen that idiot over there with those binoculars? And then they go, I'm not showing you nothing. I'm not showing you me hackles. I'm not even going to turn around and let you see my tail. I was certainly not flying anywhere. Yeah. So
Look,
they're
to
really
be
hard.
fair, you can have that. You can have that problem with identifying corvids. You can also have that problem with identifying honeyeaters or thornbills, particularly at a distance and with less than
That's
ideal
right.
views. So
Which is why sometimes you mark it down in pencil. I don't cla-
that's right.
I don't claim any bird that I have not absolutely 100% satisfied myself.
Yeah.
I've got lots of nice ones. Oh, someone's gone past your place in a Harley. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
I live in a great place. No.
have you got the highway, Midland Highway going by?
No, well, I back onto an alleyway. Like I'm next to
Oh,
a really, like I'm next to Main Street, which runs straight towards the city, and back onto an alleyway. So if it's not reversing trucks, then it's sort of motorbikes and pumped up cars making the most of the short distances between street lights.
you're on. You're listening to the Bird Emergency Selling Houses Australia edition.
I have a lovely neighbourhood. Like I said, Southern Boobook's calling nearby. Like that, what's not to like about that?
That's right. That's right. But look, that's a good point we've just made about corvids. I think you can have a stab, but
Mm,
but gee, it's the honours system, isn't it? When you're ticking your list for the crows and the
definitely.
ravens.
And it
Um,
takes time to get a full sense of the full range of vocals for a species, for example, and behavioral tics and things like that. So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with spending more time looking at it and less time trying to convince yourself exactly what you should put down on a piece of paper.
I can use my new favourite word. I wonder what the vocal characteristics are in a cline. Thanks,
Oh,
Maggie. I love you, Maggie.
vocals are, yeah,
Yeah.
vocals are the worst at the best of times. They're, yeah, changeable between generations and, yeah.
And you get show offs. Some of them,
Mm.
like one of the young magpies who is no longer here, who got driven away for this year. Uh, one of them was the songster. He was heading off for uh, the Voice Australian Magpie series. He was giving it his all, and he was really varied. The other one was just a bit boring. Didn't say a lot. Um, you know, but yeah. Where are we? I've saved the best till last, haven't I?
Well, technically, there's actually two to go because the bird count does also include the external territories.
Oh well, let's do Christmas Island, Cocos and Keeling, Norfolk Island. Let's have a go.
Yeah, all
All
right.
right. What did the wardens on the on our gulags? What what did they tick off?
Well, so here's where your seabirds start to come into it. So
Norfolk Island. Let's
red-footed.
go. Yeah.
Oh well, no.
Lord
So
Howe.
they've all been lumped together. So
Okay.
red-footed booby was the top of the top three, followed by brown booby, and then the endemic Christmas Island white eye came in at number three. So
Very good. Can't
there you go.
resist, Tegan. Can't resist.
What's
Who
it's not going
doesn't
to be.
love a booby?
Oh, I knew he was heading towards a booby joke.
I know. Had to go there. Had to go there. I mean, all right. Well, the white eye.
Hmm.
That's another one where we can talk about what's a species, what's a subspecies.
Absolutely. I'm sure Rob Davis would have some fantastic opinions on this as well, being such a aficionado of Pacific Island birds as he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I might have to send Rob an email or just a DM. What's what's the taxonomic status of the white eye on Norfolk or Lord Howe? Are
Oh,
they
oh,
the
this
same?
was Christmas. Yeah,
This
who?
is Christmas. Are they
Yeah,
even the same? That's
mm,
well, I'm pretty sure Christmas and Lord Howe are not the same.
probably. If there's going to be a difference, it might be
Yeah.
between those. Yeah.
I should do my explainer. Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean, northwest of Australia. It's where successive governments like to dump refugees, but amazing bird life and crabs.
Mhm. Yes.
None of their sort of uh, indigenous birds in the top couple there, Tegan, on Christmas Island.
Sorry, how do you mean?
What were what were the what were the tops there? We didn't get
It
a
was red.
fantastic pigeon or anything like that.
No, no.
No.
I mean, the only pigeon that made the list full stop was made any of the state lists was the crested pigeon in the ACT.
Okay. Okay. Um,
There's always this year.
well, I'm hanging out Christmas Island. That's one place I really want to get to, and that list includes Cocos, Keeling,
Yep.
Torres Strait Islands. So it'll be under Queensland, wouldn't they? So,
Oh, yeah. It depends which state jurisdiction they come under, or whether they
yeah, so
do
they'd be
come.
under Queensland.
I-
Okay.
Yep.
Although these external territories, Cocos, Christmas Island is West Australia, isn't it?
It depends who you're asking. Yeah. So I think
Oh,
that
I'm asking you.
when we want to claim it, we sort of we do claim it. But I think if you're doing if there's a fella at the moment who's doing a WA big year, and yeah, Christmas and Cocos don't count for that, unfortunately.
Who is that?
That's Jeffrey Groom.
Hello, Jeffrey Groom. I hope you're listening at some stage on a long drive. Hope you're doing well. All right. For the rest of the country, if you were doing a West Australian big year, what are you aiming for? 300, 200, 400?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot again, aren't you? I did hear.
You're not a very parochial West Australian, are you? I mean, I would have expected you would say 424, and they're the best birds in the country.
Well, look, I don't deny that they're the best birds in the country.
We've got the best endemics.
Well, we do. What are you talking about? No, I'm just trying to get a quick update on what Jeff's up to. What numbers he's up to. I know he's getting
that we can talk about. Have we got Jeff Groom Bird Extravaganza.com or something?
He's definitely on Facebook, and he's a very active member of the WA birding community.
Okay.
I don't think he's running
Facebook, or I'll have a look on Twitter. If I can track him down, I'll put him in the show notes.
Absolutely
that'd be cool to follow him around. That'd be cool.
So, and he did an interview with the ABC recently as well on his big year. So,
good. Let's look for that. I'll look for that too.
Yep. So
I'll try my best.
Yeah. So as of the 3rd of July, he was up to 380 species.
That's good.
Now it's into the tough territory. It's the traveling long distances for small reward, or waiting for some of these some of the migratory, something interesting to come in when all the migratory shorebirds start returning. Or
did he start January 1? Was that? He
did. Yeah, it's a calendar year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not an accountant then.
Find a financial year, big year.
Well, if you're looking for a point of difference, and maybe Ernst and Young would be a good sponsor for a financial year big year. Maybe
hit them up and see.
I might give that one a run. Yeah.
There you go.
Now, did anyone do the bird count in Antarctica?
Not as far as I'm aware. I didn't have it.
Haven't got any Australian Antarctic territories in that count.
I don't think
Macquarie?
so.
Macquarie?
Yeah.
Do we get any Macquaries? No.
Oh, not that I don't have access to the full data set for the external territories, so I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I know.
That's a bit disappointing.
No,
we'll
I know.
to
I'm rubbish. Don't have me on the show. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'll see what I can find out for you.
We'll have to chase that one up.
The random questions I didn't prepare for. Yes.
Well, dear listener, as you can tell, I thoroughly give away all the questions I'm going to ask of my guests.
So much warning. Absolutely.
Um, uh,
Did you want to hear what the top three were
I
in
do,
delightful
I do,
Victoria?
I
Yeah.
do,
Oh, good.
because I completely. Actually, I want to hear the territory ones again because I forgot the external territories.
External territories. Number one, red-footed booby. Two, brown
Brown
booby, and
booby.
then Christmas Island white eye.
I just wanted you to say booby again.
And you got it out of me twice.
I did. All right, we're back into Victoria, my home ground.
Indeed. So, top of the list in Victoria last year was rainbow lorikeet, possibly
Yep.
unsurprising.
Yep.
Second in the list, maybe also unsurprising, Australian magpie.
I
Yep.
again, I imagine that's because everyone knows them and everybody sees them. Yes.
Yep. And then coming in third, noisy miner.
Noisy miner. Again, everybody sees them because of the way they hang out.
Yep. And so,
Really
I mean, that's
surprised we didn't see a wattle bird anywhere.
so
That
it
surprises
was.
me.
Yeah, it's been so. In previous years, the wattlebird has made the top 10, and it definitely was in the top 10 nationally in 2018. You could say booted out by the ibis, but just it starts some controversy. But I'm pretty sure it made some top 3 lists from last year. Let me just have a quick look.
And it's
That would be a fib.
around here. I have red wattlebirds and little wattlebirds, both really active around the gardens and whatnot, and in the park.
Yep.
I tested this myself in my highly non-scientific manner. I thought that the red wattlebird was probably more numerous, but no. I think the little wattlebird is more numerous. The red wattlebird is just the one you see because it is protecting the trees that it likes. So I see it all the time doing stuff. But the little wattlebirds are up high in the bigger trees. The red wattlebird is hanging around in the lower trees, more at my eye level or that I can see with the naked eye. So
Interesting.
Now, again, I've applied my scientific method to that.
Yep.
But I think the little wattlebird around here is more numerous, but not more seeable, for want of a much better scientific term.
Yeah. So comparatively, so in WA, it's been split. So it's the Western wattle. We get red wattlebirds and we get Western wattlebirds. But Western wattlebirds tend to are much less numerous. They tend to be a little bit more mobile. They tend to be following the blossom a bit more. So yeah, they're seasonal visitors to people with native gardens. But otherwise, whereas red wattlebirds tend to be permanent residents.
And then again, for people like me who were born in the Industrial Revolution, brush wattlebird is the old name, I think, for the Western wattlebird, isn't it? Which is the little one.
It used to be called the little. It used to be considered little wattlebird. We used
to have little and brush, I think was
okay.
I knew them. But common names, they suck.
They do.
They suck. But the proper names, they're too hard to say. So common names it is.
Look, common names are one of the things that make things like the Aussie bird count accessible to everybody. So there you go.
That's right. And look, most people my age, Tegan, not young.
What age would that be? 23?
Well, I was building aqueducts in Rome. Archaeopteryx. I think we all learnt that one. We all know how to say that.
That's true. That's true. Kids have a lot of patience for things like that, though. So,
and Taito's a good one.
Oh yes, yep.
Taito's a good one. Laris, I'm a big fan of Laris and
Oh,
Sterner.
yes.
I don't like. I don't like going too far after that though. Neophema, that's another.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
another good
Yeah.
one. Oh, Turnix, Turnix.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Coturnix.
yeah. Turnix. Geez, see, people start making it hard. They start doing revisions. What are you
What?
scientists up to? Bloody doing revisions, splitting things off. You and your Kleins.
Keeping ourselves in work. That's what we're up to.
Oh, we're
But
keeping
I mean,
ourselves amused.
to be fair, one of the really nice things about the Aussie Bird Count app is that it will also include some of those names that we know birds by that aren't their actual, like their accepted common names. So if you search seagull instead of silver gull, then silver gull will come up. Yeah, if you search mudlark or peewee, you'll be able to find magpie lark, those sorts of things, which help make it really easy. Down with gatekeeping.
Yep, down with gatekeeping. But we do like controversy. So let's settle that argument.
All right.
Is it a mudlark?
Or
a peewit, or a peewee, or a magpie lark?
Well, the accepted common name is magpie lark, but that being said, language is fantastic. So if somebody says one of those other names, you still know what they mean, right? There's no need be.
Hang on. Accepted by who?
Well, as with these things, there is a committee.
Yeah, there's always a committee. But it's not like botany where you go back to the first press specimen. Or actually, let's go down that rabbit hole. Is that how we determine which common name is the common name we use? Is it the first one that was given? How do we determine that?
Yeah, well, that's definitely the case for the scientific names, but not for common names.
So who's on this committee?
It's above my pay grade, Grant.
Who's on this?
I don't think there is a pay grade.
I want a word. I want a word with this committee.
More than one, I suspect.
I want more pork. Bring it back. It's one thing. See, the New Zealanders have got it right. They've kept more pork. They haven't gone with this boo-book.
Well, it is always interesting. You have these species that are, eastern osprey or southern boobook, and we don't like. Where do we get the other half?
Let's go there.
I think Osprey has. I think they have accepted that change, but I think that the change to where we can, like, adopting more Indigenous names into our bird vernacular, and also getting rid of some of those shady characters from history has been a good change. I know that the name change for Major Mitchell is up for.
Bird names for birds. Let's get on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming up in the bird emergency, we will be doing bird names for birds.
Fantastic.
We'll also be doing birding while black, something I obviously know nothing about. So,
there are many ways to be an ally, and that's definitely one of them.
Bird names for birds. I'm big on that one.
Me too.
Especially when, I love reading the histories of John Gould and John Gilbert and whatnot. But let's be serious. What was John Gilbert's job?
You've got an answer in mind?
Well,
I don't know what his actual job was.
Well, his job was to go out and shoot birds and send them back to John Gould.
Yeah.
So, hey, Now, that's how things were done back then, but I'm not too sure we should be celebrating that. And, Gilbert's Whistler, the ones he didn't kill.
Look,
saying, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying.
Shotgun ornithology is a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it had to be done. it had to be done to. Did it? Well, did it? Did it have to be done? I'm not. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it
Actually,
was, yeah. I mean, it was in fitting with the, it was in fitting with the time with how new species were accepted. Was that there had to be a whole physical specimen of it. But
yeah. I was just going to
that's
say something far more controversial. I don't know whether I
no.
should. When, I mean,
I'll leave.
when you say it was in fitting with the time, in keeping with the time. Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of things that. Yeah,
so was poisoning water holes.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it was the best approach for
yeah.
things. That's yeah. That's
The good
absolutely.
news,
The,
the good
yes.
news
Hmm.
is we don't do that anymore. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's the good news. Um,
And
while we're
becoming more accepting of the fact that while they might have been new species to us, they weren't new species to humanity. That's for sure.
yeah, and well, that's right. You're really good at doing these little opening the door to a new opportunity, another rabbit hole, as I like to say. Bird names for birds is one movement, but
Hmm.
how's the the academic sort of bird community of which you you walk those hallowed halls, Tegan?
Oh, I dabble around the fringes.
Well, is there a movement towards if we're going to be reanalyzing, reassessing the common names that we are using?
Hmm.
Is there a movement gaining pace to use Indigenous names where we can? We've
I
got a
think.
galah, we've got a kookaburra,
Yep.
lorikeet, I think.
Hmm.
Lor- is lorikeet Indigenous name or is it I think it's a bastardisation of lorry and
Hmm.
parakeet. But
Yeah.
we can probably fool ourselves and say it's an Indigenous name. But how, is that gaining a pace? Would you like to see the eastern yellow robin become the something else?
I definitely would. I mean, we see this. We've seen this happen quite successfully in New Zealand, and where a lot of the Maori names and the English names are listed side by side, and to so many people, they're synonymous. Like there's no
Yeah.
one used in favor of the other. And
Well,
in fact, the Indigenous
well,
names,
the
the Maori
tui
names, are sometimes
is
favored. Yeah.
is the tui anything else other than a tui?
Um, there's some old names like there's like a priest bird or something like that
Because I
that
know they've got like
was.
saddlebacks and things like that, but
Mm,
they're all being moved over. But Hawaii has a lot of native names, I think, still attached
yeah,
to their
absolutely.
birds. I,
I think
I'm
that
amazed that there aren't more here. I mean,
so
the-
yeah.
we've got a fair few. Like obviously we've got the emu, we've got the cassowary. I'm going to
Okay.
assume, but I don't know. Is the cassowary an
So when
indigenous name?
we have a really strong, we've made really good advances with a lot of our mammals. So
Yeah,
so things like chuditch, quolls and rakali water rats. The probably the issue that comes with doing it with changing those names now is that those are names that are found across multiple language groups,
that
and where so
yeah.
you have a really widespread species that it isn't just a matter of it being quite similar sounding names in like closely related language groups, but has completely different names across the country. So in the old days it would have been decided by wherever the type specimen was collected, where maybe that's still
Yeah.
a good mode to go by, but yeah,
Then
making
there,
that
then
decision
there's the
now.
other issue is somebody wrote down I don't know bandicoot, right?
Mhm.
Some white dude on an expedition wrote down bandicoot may not have ever been correct.
Mm.
So then we've got the whole other fringe issues. Uh, uh,
There's definitely some legacy issues there.
this must be interesting because someone stuck with us the whole way, Tegan. Which I'm kind of amazed at because we have gone down so many rabbit holes.
Yep,
I
we have.
love talking to
Well,
you,
maybe we've
Tegan.
gone
I've
down
got to
booty
say
holes. Let's.
we've gone down
They,
booby holes,
let,
something like that. I love I love talking to you because you're very good at letting me run and pulling me back. It's
Thank you, I think.
all right. Let's go back to the whole point of the bird count. We've done the top around the
Yep.
states. We've had a look. Was there anything out of all the information that you've seen? And obviously, it's such a big job. The analysis of it is still going on.
Yep.
Recovery teams are all having a look. I imagine there's different data that's being given to different people and whatnot.
Yep.
But what are the most significant things do you think that you can draw out of the information that you've been able to look at so far?
So, from my perspective, I think it's really important to, when you consider the immense effort that's gone into this, and people who are coming from all sorts of backgrounds are doing it, I think that we can be pretty comfortable with with patterns that we can detect with more common species, so things like magpies and rainbow lorikeets and things. I think, unfortunately, the bird count and it's not the best method for detecting patterns in some of our more threatened species, or things like we were talking about owls before. So they're again a species that that's not the right survey method to get a true count of their numbers.
Because, well, it's quite possible that I've got half a dozen barn owls living around near me, but I've only ever seen one, and I only ever saw one fly past the street light. So
yep, that's right. And for the species that are best counted in other ways, in a lot of cases, we do have that alternative method already in progress. So in WA, for example, when it comes to our threatened black cockatoo species, we run the Great Cocky Count every year as a method of assessing those populations. They have survey methods in place for assessing how our Western ground parrot populations are tracking in areas that they're known to habituate. We do shorebird and waterbird censuses a couple of times a year. But I think the really valuable thing about this bird count, and again, you don't always see it just by looking at these top 10, top 3 kind of lists, but is that we're collecting data from places that we would otherwise, like people like me who are paid researchers essentially wouldn't be able to access. The birds that you see in your backyard are not going to be able to be recorded by anybody else except you. That makes that data extremely valuable. And so the better that people, and I think people are getting better as the years go by, the people that do come back and do the bird count each year, in between counts, they are looking more at their birds and getting to know them.
That's right.
And
it's a gateway drug.
Oh, birds are a gateway drug. Absolutely. And I think, we're just going to be getting better and better information out of this as the years go by, definitely. And so to the point where hopefully it's not just our most common species, our really readily identifiable species that we can tell more about, but we can also tell more about some of our less common species as well.
Yeah, well, that's where the data is really valuable from a management point of view, isn't it? You can go back and analyse the trends. When the pandemic's over and everyone can get back to their favourite national park, their favourite camping grounds and whatnot, and plan to be places, because I'm sure in times gone by that really hardcore birders would plan a trip to be somewhere to get records in particular places that are not well populated.
Absolutely.
That's a great value of having a survey that is basically the same survey year in, year out. And the data managed by the same people, which is...
It is. And sorry. As I say, the nice thing about it as well is that this is the very community focused, engaging the public, bright and shiny, once a year activity that we do to census birds. But at BirdLife, we're encouraging people to be recording birds every day of the year. That's obviously a little bit more of a difficult ask to get people involved with off the bat. So hence the Aussie bird count is a great hook. It is a great gateway drug into the deep and dark world of bird surveying. But for people who can go from doing this 1 week a year to doing seasonal surveys of birds in their backyard, to maybe joining a team that is going out and surveying an area for wetland birds, or surveying shorebirds, or heading into their woodland, like local woodland patches and reserves, surveying birds. It's a great way to get involved and to be contributing that data year round that helps really fill out the picture of what's up with our birds.
If you're a casual birder and you're listening, it's important to understand that the kind of funding that, we talk about the 1970s, the 1980s, that when I was a kid and a teenager and whatnot, a lot of that funding has disappeared to do work like this. So citizen science is really important. That's why I continually go back. If I can find someone to talk to who's doing a citizen science project, I want to talk to them, because this is how all of the decision makers are getting reliable information, because there's not a lot of funding for anyone to go and check out lorikeets, is there?
Definitely not.
Because they're not about to disappear, so they don't get priority. So citizen science is really, really important. The bird count's really important. And hey, people like you working at BirdLife, you're really important too, Tegan.
Oh, thank you. I think people like you that are spreading the word about all these things are equally great.
Well, bird nerds are important. We're all important. Get yourself your binoculars.
Yep.
Whether you're doing it with a pen and paper or whether you're downloading the app, you have to be either downloading the app or logging on to the website to enter your data. So
yep. It's really easy to do, and you can definitely the like I said, the Bird ID feature is there ahead of time, so you're more than welcome to use that to get familiar with the birds that are in your space. But the count itself is from the 18th to the 24th of October this year.
And while I don't want to be drawing away from the app, which of course I'll put a link to in the show notes, check out eBird, check out iNaturalist. Depending on where you are in the world, check out Merlin. There's wherever you are, get involved, have a look at what's around you, and if you're into fungi, or if you're into mosses, or if you're into frogs, or if you're into lizards, there's similar apps, there's similar programs, there's similar things, activities that are out there all over the world. So get involved, because you make a difference, don't you, Tegan? This little bit of data combined with your neighbour's little bit of data and the people on the other coastline and their little bit of data, it helps proper scientists like you.
It certainly does. And it is proper science. This citizen science is proper science. You're contributing data that is, that can't be collected any other way. There is no way that that paid professional researchers could scour the places that the everyday people who are passionate about their birds can cover. We've got a wonderful community out there, so it's fantastic seeing people taking the time out to contribute their time and their effort, and making it as a reason. Well, when we're able to, making it as a reason to visit somewhere that they haven't been able to visit for a while, or a favourite childhood bushland patch or family holiday destination or whatever, and recording the birds there.
So get yourself a pair of binoculars, and Tegan's just told you it's proper science. You can
Absolutely.
You can get yourself a white coat as well,
if you want.
Yep.
There's no, well, to be fair, there's no uniform for bird watching.
Yeah. There is in England. I think you have to have an anorak, don't you? In England.
Yeah, either that or one of those vests with like the 50 bajillion pockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Although that means you're either a twitcher or a shooter. I'm not too sure which
that's
one you
true.
are.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas we're much more relaxed here in Australia, I think, about our bird watching attire. And yeah, like I said, if it like we were talking about, it's been a heck of a 18 months, 2 years for quite a lot of people. So just having the opportunity to be outside and breathe the fresh air and listening to birds singing does amazing things for us. So be sure to make the most of it.
Well, Tegan, anyone who's listening, and if they're regular listeners, hopefully they're like Nick, who I spoke to on Twitter the other day, and we're talking about Photography Friday. He'll be
Mhm.
coming up soon. He ploughed through a few episodes in his 2,000 kilometre trip the other day, which I
Yep.
like to hear. But it's it's really great when people are supporting each other's efforts, and that's what citizen science is about. And there's so many good projects, but the pandemic,
Mhm.
it's messing with a lot of us who are rolling in and out of lockdowns. We're not being
Yep.
able to get outside. So go and go and do the work that a lot of us can't go and do at
Mm.
the moment. Go and find yourself a scarlet honeyeater or a
Please.
or a southern log runner. Someone go and find me a southern log runner. I, have you seen a log runner?
I have just the one, like just a fleeting glimpse, but yes.
Never seen a log runner. I'd like someone to tell me about a log runner. What's the date, Tegan, for the bird count? Let's get there. What have they got to look out for? They got to go to
So,
which website?
yep, the National Bird Week this year is the 18th to the 24th of October, 2021. The website where you can enter your sightings or find out more about the count is www.aussiebirdcount.com.au. And the lead up to that, if you are following BirdLife Australia on any of the social media channels, you will not be able to help but hear about some of the fantastic things that are going on. So it won't just be the bird count. There'll be hopefully, yeah, restriction dependent. There'll be a whole heap of either in person or online events and bits and pieces going on to promote our wonderful birds and the ways that you can get involved.
We've talked about the Great Cocky Count, Tegan.
Mm-hmm.
What are the
Yep.
dates for the Great Cocky Count? Roughly,
So the Great
which
Cocky
which,
Count,
which month are they? Is that happening?
it's usually late March or early April in
Okay.
southwest WA. There are a few other counts, a few other great fauna counts that go on as well. I know there's been a pelican count. There's a white bird count that counts ibis and corella and sulphur crested cockatoo on the eastern seaboard in the past. And there are also some counts for southeastern red-tailed black cockatoos happening at different times as well.
Yeah. So just put the Great Cocky Count on your calendar if you're in WA. Get involved.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
I think the white bird count. Uh, that's like the wing tags and big city birds kind of
that's
project.
right.
So
Yeah.
John Martin runs that. So we'll publicise that as much as we can. I hope Tassie does something. I hope Tassie do something.
They did do a wedge-tailed eagle count.
Oh well, of course they do. Where we're
There's
wedgie, of course
That's
we've
right.
we've featured that. Hello, Claire. How are you, Claire? Um,
I was like, where have
yeah,
I heard about? Where did I hear about that count? And it was it
of
was this
course. Where did you
podcast.
hear about that? Well, Claire's been on. Claire's been on twice. We did
Yeah.
review. We did review, and we will obviously do. I'll stick with that. That's a great.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a great project where we're wedgie in Tasmania. But
It
I just
it
wondered
really
whether
is.
there was a more general statewide count, because of course Tassie is very parochial, like you lot over in the west, but much smaller, and you can kind of get around it. You can almost do a race or something. We could do a rally, a bird rally. Could do lots of things. Wherever
Well, I
nationwide
think that
is.
I think that nationwide the Twitchathon is not going to be happening in the same way that it has in previous years, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully it'll return soon. It'll enable all states to line up against each other and, yeah, go and competitively race around the countryside finding birds.
Mm. Now, Tegan, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but you and I were talking about a new potential competitive outlet for birders too that
Ah,
might be
yes,
coming up. So just look out for
absolutely.
that one. Just look out for that one. We're we're
Definitely.
we're, we're planning it, and it's not a twitchathon, so it's something different. But you'll be able to compete against other birders. So that's what we want. I want a cup. I want to win a cup. So, or at very least, I want a ribbon. So,
Definitely.
hey Tegan, guess what?
What?
We've cracked 2 hours, mate.
Oh my goodness.
Look, hey, if you're still listening, if you haven't fast forwarded it, you miss. Well, if you didn't fast forward, you heard all the jokes. Um,
Such as they are.
yeah, such as they are. Tegan, I love talking to you, and I know I've had I've had some comments. People love it when you're on the show. Um, so
Thanks.
you'll be a victim again. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
I'm more than happy to come and natter about birds anytime people like, Grant. You know that.
I, what what should we talk about next for Western Australia? Because that's your patch. I don't want to
Mm.
get. I don't want to, tread on other people. What? Um, we haven't really talked about stuff up in the north. Maybe we could. Maybe we could come up with an idea for something in the
In the
Pilbara
steamy
or
tropics,
yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah.
Well, where it's hard for people to go, but there is
Mhm.
a great observatory up at Broome.
There is.
Plenty of
There's
people.
Yeah, I mean Broome is a fantastic spot, not just for the bird observatory. It has an amazing there's an amazing bushbird selection up there, but it's right on the edge of Roebuck Bay and not that far from 80 Mile Beach, so it is one of the shorebird watching meccas of the world. It's a phenomenon to be able to see that many migratory shorebirds all arrive from, looking freshly worn after migration from the Arctic, or fattening up over wintering, changing color as they're about to fly off. There's so much potential to talk about the wonder of shorebirds and what makes the Broome area so special for them.
For for international listeners, Western Australia's big, like really, really big. And I don't know, I think there's 200 odd countries in the world, I think. I reckon you could probably fit 70 or 80 of them into the area of Western Australia. It's massive. So when we talk about Perth, which is where you're at, Tegan,
Yep,
that's a tiny little slice.
it
We
sure
haven't.
is.
We've hardly talked deserts. We haven't talked
No,
deserts. We haven't.
nope.
So we'll.
Haven't
We,
talked the like Pilbara Gorge country, or yeah,
yep. We'll.
there's lots.
We'll get there, dear listener. Um, I should also say, well, always up for suggestions. If there's something you want to know about, you know, just let me know. And the easy way to do that is at Bird Emergency. Um, hang on, there we go. At Bird Emergency for the video on Twitter, or Grant at thebirdemergency.com. You can always let me know what you think. I'll take any kind of commentary on board. birdlifeaustralia.org.au. It's just
Yes,
birdlife.org.au, isn't it?
it is. Yeah.
Are you going to give out your Twitter handle, Tegan? Are you
Yeah, more than happy to.
let's,
So my Twitter handle is at Tegan Douglas. So Tegan Douglas. Or if you're after anything more general about BirdLife, at BirdLife Oz, OZ is the one for BirdLife Australia.
Just saw a news alert came up on my phone, Tegan.
Uh-oh.
Another part of New South Wales, remote part of New South Wales, has gone into lockdown. So we this.
Oh, sheesh. I'm sorry to hear that, guys.
Yeah,
That's,
this.
yeah.
I, that's why the bird count's going to be really, really important. We're going to need some joy and something fun to do. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope it doesn't get back to you guys, Tegan, because it's no fun.
No, me neither. And yeah, all of you people out there, if you've got the opportunity to go and get vaccinated, do. Otherwise, yeah, stick with the state advice, stay at home if you're asked to, minimize your contact with people at risk. Yeah, do the best thing for yourself and your community.
Wash your hands, stay out of crowds, stay home if you can, and listen to the back catalogue of the Bird Emergency, and she'll be right, mate.
That's exactly right. You want the perfect tool for social distancing? It's binoculars. Stand out in public with a pair of those babies and you look really weird. Nobody's going to want to come close. So, yeah, try that out. No, I don't. I'm not that sort of doctor. I don't give public health advice. I'm sorry, Grant. That's
Tegan, I didn't realise why people were not coming and talking to me at the supermarket. It's my binoculars.
Ah, dear.
Actually, I'm in the market for a new pair. I'm in the market for a lightweight, groovy pair. But
yeah. I reckon Twitter will be able to offer up some suggestions on that front, but I reckon, yeah, treat yourself.
Getting a lot of opinions, but
Twitter's full of that.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of opinions. Yeah, you know what I'd really love, Tegan?
What's that?
A free pair. Am I allowed to say that?
It's your podcast. You can say what you want. Oh, that's one of the other things about the Aussie bird count is there's usually prizes involved as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the prizes is we usually manage to get sponsorship from Swarovski. So there's usually a fantastic pair of Swarovski binoculars, as well as some other. I think last year they had some beautiful prints from like Egg Picnic and all sorts of things happening. So yet another reason to get involved. I
might have to say Swarovski a bit more often in my podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe, yeah. You've been asking people what their favourite piece of kit is. Maybe you should ask people what their favourite brand is.
Well, that's right. I will have to incorporate that. I'm always reluctant to do that because quality equipment is generally there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different brands, but I would love a new pair of binoculars.
Yeah, I think you never regret buying good optics, but as much as you're comfortable to spend, and I don't know. My advice to everybody with binoculars is always go and try them in the hand. What is recommended as something that's really good by somebody else, they might have really big or really small hands, be happy carrying something heavier than you are. Testing them out in the field or, in your own hands is great.
This bit's what annoys me. My pair are not comfortable to use, and I didn't find that out until after I'd used them about 4 or 5 times. And then you're stuck with them. You're kind of stuck with them because no one wants your cast off binoculars. Go, what's wrong with them? What's wrong? Why are you giving a good pair of binoculars away? What's wrong with them? So.
Yep. Ergonomics. A good pair that's comfortable to use for long periods of time are an absolute treat.
They're starting to market them in fashion colours, Tegan.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing that.
Yeah.
No, you want them black or green, like colours you're gonna lose them. They're the only colours you should get. None of this like bright orange and
the mauve ones are pretty fetching. Yeah, I like that. Does Swarovski make them in purple? I wonder. I don't know.
I don't know. They definitely make them in orange. I've seen some orange ones, and they do some like sand coloured ones as well. But
Oh,
don't know.
Swarovski sand.
Mm. Look, I'm not even on
Swarovski
commission.
Swarovski optical orange. I don't know. It's, uh, it's amazing. All right, look, we've been enough. I've been a sellout for a shill enough now. Look, thanks so much to someone stuck with us all the way, Tegan.
Good
I
on you.
love, and I must say, I love it. Sorry, audio listeners, we always do the video live. Um, I generally make it a public link so people can stumble upon us. I love it when they do, and I love watching to see if people stick with us the whole way. Bird nerds like listening to bird stuff. I don't know if you know that, Tegan, and they
I
will
do.
they will
I like
listen
listening to
to.
bird nerd stuff.
Um, Tegan, would you like to know what's coming up soon on the bird emergency? I'm not committing
Yes.
to putting them out in this order.
I most definitely would. I want to know what I'm up for listening to. I can't wait.
Okay, tell me one word that describes the Carolina parakeet, Tegan.
Dead.
Exactly. I would have accepted extinct, but dead is perfectly acceptable. Yes, I did speak to the marvellous Kevin Burgio about the Carolina parakeet, so that's coming up.
Oh, that'll
Seabird
be super.
soundscapes. Seabird soundscapes. Yet another citizen science project where you can listen to a library of several thousand seabird recordings and help do the work to catalogue them as part of a global project, but based out of London. Um, Wimbrels, Wimbrels in Iceland, the the flyway that
As if Wimbrels weren't cool enough at home,
that's
but
right.
Wimbrels
Well,
in Iceland.
of course, listeners to the show will know that um, I love curlews. Wimbrels are just cool curlews, other curlews,
Yep.
non-conforming curlews.
Curly
So we,
cousins.
that's right. We like a rebel. And what else? The flyway, the Middle Eastern flyway that scoots through Israel.
Wow.
So we're going to learn about that migratory pathway. We've talked a lot about the East. What's your dog doing there?
He's just hanging around, getting in the way. He says it's time for a walk. I am having
Oh,
trouble
can you hear
hearing
me
you,
all right, Tegan?
actually.
What? Oh, he's just hanging around. You're looking. Oh yeah, I was going to say you're looking stressed, and the internet. You see, I've got a job to edit a lot of that crap that I was just talking out there. But yeah, citizen science, seabird soundscapes. That's what I'm getting uh, to get involved in. Tegan Douglas. What
Yes.
I always fail to write this down. What's your actual title? Ah,
So
I love it.
my
Oh,
job
she's
title.
totally dropped out.
No, I'm still here. Can you
No,
hear
no,
me?
you're back. Okay, go.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Before it
yeah,
drops
I can
out,
hear you.
I'm
I thought you couldn't hear me. Yeah,
for a little while. My job title is WA Citizen Science Project Coordinator at BirdLife Australia.
there we go. See, the world is amazing. This is the bird emergency. That's Tegan Douglas, Citizen Science Coordinator, BirdLife Australia, Western Australian Division. We've been talking about, I'm going to get it wrong, the great Aussie bird count,
It is
not
great.
the great Aussie backyard bird count. It's great. It's the
It is
bird count,
great.
and it's
It's the Aussie
happening.
bird count.
It's the Aussie
And it's
bird count.
happening,
It's
sorry,
great. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it in your street. And it's happening.
on the 18th to the 24th of
I'm throwing the
October.
Tegan. It's the 24th of October, 2020. That's Australian Bird Week, or Bird Week, or the Great Australian Bird Week.
Why not all of them?
We can
It
have
is
it any
great,
way.
it is
Yeah,
Australian, and it is a big week about birds.
and if you're lucky, check out birdlife.org.au closer to the date and have a look. Pandemic pending, I have to throw that in. There will be great days where you can go and learn identification skills. You can go and learn the birds in your area, and you can walk around with someone who's as cool as Tegan. I can't guarantee they will actually be just as cool as Tegan.
They might be
there'll
cooler.
No. But there will be people who are on perhaps on the same plane of coolness as Tegan, and you can really learn a lot about birds, identifying birds around you. We're out this time, Tegan. I'm Grant Williams. That's Tegan Douglas. This has been the Bird Emergency. Thanks for sticking with us. This will be one of those great ones for driving between Cairns and Brisbane. See you next time.
Bye.